stinking spot. You almost died.
Yeah, we don't know what we do out here. I don't understand. You almost drowned.
You know, good thing we were there. I mean, if we weren't there, it would have been all over for you.
I mean, you must have to realize that you're a cat and you can't swim.
I mean, cats in water don't go to. It's good thing you're a cat. You got 9 lives.
Yeah.
Now tell us about what were you thinking? Out in the river, a deepest spot of the river, all by yourself. What were you thinking? You okay, buddy? Here, maybe we better tie us on your neck. That way, you know, if anything else happens, you got some safety here. What happened? Tell us what happened. A bee stung you in the butt.
Okay, and some punching and trying to grab the bee because you're mad at the bee for stinging you. And so you climbed up on this rock and tried to jump and catch the bee, and it was over the deepest part of the entire river. And you fell in the water, and then you began to go like this. Boom, 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 boom. Okay. Wow.
What he said, right? Wow. I don't know how you got all that out here.
I heard it.
Oh, you're wrong.
I got the cat senses.
Oh, you have to wax from you. Cat sense.
The cat senses. Yeah. So we saved you from the water because you were about to drown. You were going to die. Well, good thing we were there, Todd.
I don't know. Listen, why in the world would you jump off a rock and chase a bee over top of a river? I don't know.
Yeah, if someone hurt me, I'd be out of there.
Yeah, but if he's done me, the last thing I want to see is him. He runs away. He chases it, though. That takes some courage right there.
Nice job. But we were glad we were there to help. And you know what? The funny thing is that we have been saved from something as well, Brian.
Really?
Excuse me, your name is not Brian. It's Jungle Jim. Sorry. Safari Sam was on a tour for too long. So, yeah, we've been saved from this thing exactly the same way where we've been saved from something. Now, we're going to get to how we've been saved from that, but we have to understand why we need some saving.
Well, what do I need saving?
I
look perfectly fine to me.
Well, yeah.
I feel healthy.
You look great today, Jungle Jim.
I know.
But the problem is not your outward appearance. It's actually, there's a problem with your heart.
Nope,
Yeah.
still there.
You won't be able to see it either because your heart looks fine, but there's an issue that the Bible talks about, and it's something that we all have to deal with because of a curse that was placed on us because of Adam's sinfulness in Genesis 1. Has anybody ever heard of Adam and Eve in the story in the garden? Yeah?
Adam who?
Adam.
Yeah. How many of you are named Adam in the room?
You ever heard of Adam?
See right there, I know an Adam. Right there.
Yeah, very nice. So here's a little bit of a quick story. So everything was created by God, right? You remember how we heard how this God created man in his image and likeness? Do we remember that? Do we remember that at all? No? No? Can anybody tell me what day God created man? Day 6. Yes, so we saw this the other day, how God created man. But the problem is that was all perfect and wonderful in the beginning, and everything was the way that God intended life to be. However, if you remember from the story, there was a snake who was creeping around in the garden, okay? And that snake was Satan. And he whispered in the ear of Eve, Adam's wife, and said, hey, I want you to eat this fruit. If you do it, you're going to have life, and you're going to be smart, and it's going to be great. And so what happened was, Eve goes, hey, this is really great. I don't know what the snake was talking to me and said, we eat this, we're going to be good. And so Adam goes, okay, and eats it. That's a big no-no for all of us.
Yeah, no.
Big no-no. Because what happens is when Adam eats that apple, that is going in direct disobedience. Does anybody know what disobedience means? Yes. You don't obey, you go against what they say. And that's a big problem for what we have today because the things that take place in the garden through Adam's sin against God can be seen and reflected to us today. And that may sound a little bit weird, but I almost forgot where it was. One tour and I'm forgetting where everything is. If we go to Romans chapter 5, it says, in verse 12, therefore, just as sin came into the world through one man. Who's that one man that came through? Adam, yes. Through one man, sin came into the world, and death through sin. And so death spread to all men because all sinned. Now, this whole idea of death spreading to all men, it doesn't mean a physical death, but even worse, a spiritual death. Because God is perfect and holy, so the idea of holiness is being without all this sin and nastiness. He is completely good. Okay, does everybody get that? He is completely good.
What's sin?
Well, I'm getting there in a second. Sorry.
Okay.
So there's this, okay. So there's the idea of sin, and sin is everything you think, say, and do. Any disobedience, anything that is against what God's character is sinful. So, like me, I'll take for myself, not going to throw anybody else out, but I disobey my parents sometimes. I don't know if anybody can relate with that, but that same way, that is sin. If you steal something, that's sin. Even if you think in your mind something not very nice about someone, that is sinful. And not only is that sinful in our own actions, but it's a direct disobedience, a direct going against what God would have us to do. And that's a really big problem. And that's a problem that we all have. And that's what's going on here in this text, is that through Adam, all sin is spread to all men. And because of that, there's a separation, there's a block between us and God, because God is over here. And so God is completely good and holy. And no sin is a part of him, right? There's no bad thoughts. There's no bad actions. God is always good. Now, there's this big, huge wall in between us because of our sin. And so we're over here, and there's a separation. Right? Does everybody understand that? It's a tough thing, but also it's a very scary thing. Because of our just nastiness there and all of our sin, we can't have any interaction with God. So God's here in heaven, and we can't break through that wall because of our sinfulness. So we're separated from Him. This afternoon, we'll talk about someone who broke through the wall and gave us the ability to come to God and live with Him in perfect harmony forever. But there's other things, sorry, there's some other things that I'd like you guys to know as well. Here's some other ideas that we have about our sin, okay? In chapter 3 of Romans, this guy, Paul, who's writing the letter, talks about just how kind of bad we are. And this is what he says. What then are we? Jews any better off? No, not at all, for we have already changed it all. Both Jews and Greeks are under sin. So that means everybody. There's no one that is good enough to get out of their sinfulness. We are all under this problem. Because if we're all truthful today, and I hope we will be able to understand this because this is really important, that at least once in our life, all of us have sinned. All of us have told a lie. We have said something not nice about someone. We've stolen. We've disobeyed our parents. We do this. This is a part of our nature. This is who we are because of way back what we see in Genesis 1. And so he goes on and says, none is righteous, no, not one. So no one is good. No one understands. No one seeks for God. All have turned aside. Together they have become worthless. No one does good, not even one. Their throat is an open grave. They use their tongues to deceive. The venom of asps is under their lips. Their mouth is full of curses and bitterness. Basically, that's a lot of sad stuff to say. We're in really big needs of help. We all are under this sin. And again, here, let's go over to Colossians. Colossians chapter 1. He says in verse 21, this is Paul again, he says, and you who once were alienated and hostile in mind, doing evil deeds. This whole idea of being alienated, what this basically means is we're enemies of God. Enemies. Does anybody know what an enemy is? Yes. Okay. Okay, we're going to look at that, yes. Someone that you are against. Yes. So, connecting with, what's your name, buddy? So, connecting with what Daniel said, what Autumn said, is so there is sin. So, we do still sin. And that sin is against God, right? And so, an enemy is someone who's also against God. If, and we're going to talk about this at the end of the day, we got to help Jungle Jim out a little bit. If we are not living a life that is honoring God, if we are not treasuring Jesus, and we do not have Him in our life as Lord and King, we are not saved. And there is a separation between us and God. And if that is so, we are enemies of God. That is a very scary thing, to be an enemy of God, because there is no way for you to be welcomed into heaven with God and reign with Him together forever. And there is only sin, like darkness and destruction to that.
So let me see. So far, Sam.
Yeah.
I think I'm starting to get this a little bit. So, like, just as Spot was in trouble drowning in water,
Yes.
I too am not physically drowning in water right now,
Right.
but I need a savior. I need someone to save me because I'm drowning in my sin.
Yes.
And if no one helps me, then I'm going to die that way.
Yeah.
And that's very bad then.
Yeah. It's really bad.
I'm going to hell then maybe.
Yeah. That's a big problem. And God does not want you to be His enemy. And it's a very serious matter, and we really want to take this seriously, because it is important that we should all know that God cares for us, and God has made a way to open up this issue of separation, this being separate, being apart from God. And He's made a way, and we're going to see that this afternoon.
Well, thank you very much, Sparrow Sam, for helping me understand that. And I look forward this afternoon when you show me about who the Savior is and who can save me from drowning in my sin. Yesterday's verse, anybody remember?